Yeah, so 1984 is when the mustard seed was founded, so 41 years ago, in downtown Calgary. And it was originally called the Burning Bush. And
Oh,
it was a coffee house in the basement of First Baptist Church that was run specifically for people experiencing homelessness. And it became this thing of guys on the street serving coffee to other guys on the street, essentially, is how kind of it started. And one of those guys that came in to grab a cup of coffee, his name's Pat. He ended up becoming the founder of what would later be known as the mustard seed. And so, like, talk about that very clear example of talking to somebody because they're a person, not a problem, ended up being the founder of the mustard seed.
welcome to the Happy Soul Podcast. My name is Melissa, and this is Sammi. We are diving deep into conversations that connect and inspire. Stories of resilience, triumph, and transformation. Stories that take us to the heart of human connection. Please note that opinions of our guests do not necessarily reflect those of this podcast. Please listen with your kindness and an open mind. Each story shared is authentic and vulnerable. Let's embrace our differences with empathy, knowing every voice enriches us. Together, let's cultivate a community of respect and curiosity. Thank you for listening. Now sit back, relax, and prepare to be inspired.
Welcome to the Happy Soul Podcast, everybody. Today we are here with Phil Calvert, who is from the Mustard Seed. We are so grateful for Phil joining us today because we are really excited to dive in today to chat with Phil because we've heard of the mustard seed. We've grown up learning about the mustard seed, but we actually don't know a deep dive of what the mustard seed does. And on top of that, the heart of the mustard seed.
Yeah.
Phil shares with us some really incredible quotes, mantras that they're saying around the mustard seed that are really impactful. And he teaches us how to apply them in your day-to-day, in your conversations with your kids, in how we can apply them further in the community. It's really beautiful. And we'll tell you two of the ones that he says in there, but we want you to listen so you can hear how he's talking about these. And one of them is, it's more than you think. And they're people, not a problem. And it's really, I don't know, I need to come up with more vocabulary than it's really beautiful. But it is really beautiful. And yeah, I don't know, Melissa, if you want to say anything before we welcome Phil to the episode.
No, I'm just going to echo that and say I'm really grateful to Phil for coming on and for allowing us a window into what the seed does. And it's a really cool charity, and their successes are incredible to learn about. Their why is really beautiful, like you said, and I'm just really grateful that we get to share that with our community and kind of give a little window into what this is and why. So.
Well, welcome to the podcast, Phil. We're really excited to chat with you.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to chat with you guys.
Yeah.
We'll just start off by asking, we want to ask you what your role is at the Mustard Seed and what kind of work you do for the Mustard Seed specifically.
Sure. So I'm the Chief Development Officer here at Seed. And so what that includes is I oversee all of the fundraising that we do, which is like everywhere from like our digital ads, if you've ever seen those online, all the way to kind of one-to-one major giving, so that we have different teams that do both of those kind of different activities. And I also oversee our grants team that writes grants for companies, governments, all that kind of thing. And then also our community engagement team, which is all about kind of knocking on doors, making sure that we have kind of a social license to operate in the communities that we serve. And as that team also is in charge of our volunteer services group. And so we have right now about 6,000 or so active volunteers.
Whoa.
And yeah, it's a pretty big number.
Yeah.
And what am I forgetting? I think that's it. And also our donor relations contact center, kind of the phone team. And so in total, there's about 60 staff or so spread out among all 7 cities that we have a presence and an operation in.
Wow.
That's awesome. Can you tell us what all 7 cities are?
Sure. So in BC, we have Kamloops. And then in Alberta, we have Grand Prairie, Edmonton, Red Deer, Calgary, Medicine Hat. And then in Saskatchewan, we have Saskatoon.
Awesome. And can you maybe just for any listeners that are tuning in that might not know about the mustard seed or what they do, can you kind of give us just a brief synopsis before we really like dive into the nitty-gritty about what the seed does?
Sure. So, like our mission is to end homelessness and reduce poverty everywhere that we serve. And so, in like a basic nutshell, what we're trying to do is through a variety of services, which we can get into,
Yeah.
is for an individual that shows up at our door. Our goal is to end homelessness for that person,
Wow.
and then broader for the entire community that we're serving in as well. But it starts with one.
That's I'm curious to ask more about that because I know we've had some other guests on and spoken to some people that kind of think that the idea of or believe I shouldn't say that this isn't like controversial, but anyways, believe that actually ending homelessness isn't really possible,
Mhm.
because there are people who choose that lifestyle, and obviously there's many people who don't. So I'd be curious to ask your thoughts on that specifically.
Yeah. So, like for us, it starts with the one. And so if an individual comes to us and says, "I don't want this anymore," we are there. We are there to serve them, help them through. We have an entire system. In total, amongst our 7 different cities, we're just over 900 staff, somewhere in that range, plus the 6,000 volunteers. And so, like that entire ecosystem is designed to move people through a progression that is the term we would use is client led. And so all of our goals, KPIs, all that kind of stuff as an organization are designed around an individual who wants to end homelessness in their life. And so when we say our mission is to end homelessness, I really do mean it when it says it starts with an individual. And if we end homelessness in that individual's life, or we help them to end homelessness in their own life more accurately, um, that's mission accomplished for that person. Now, scaling that is kind of our BHAG, right? It's to use the business term. Our big, hairy, audacious goal, we believe, probably somewhat idealistically, that this is something that can be accomplished.
Hmm.
And in order for that to be accomplished, that's obviously way more than the 900 staff and 6,000 volunteers that we represent. That's also the 40 some thousand donors that we have. That's also the every city council that we work with, every provincial government that we work with. It's the kind of the environment that we operate in. It's the social license piece of having the ability to have shelters in communities, as well as affordable housing and fully supportive housing and addiction recovery and all the programs that we have. That all relies on partnership and being a good neighbor everywhere that we are. And so the idea of ending homelessness is not like it can be boiled down and simplified to you're driving your car and maybe you see someone that's walking between the cars at a red light asking for some money, right? Like that interaction or the concept around that interaction can be kind of the container that people think about when they think about homelessness. But the container that we think about it through is number one, the individual that's coming to our door, but then number two, the entire ecosystem that exists, and how community can be mobilized in order to actually end homelessness for not just that one person, but for many people's lives.
Oh, I love that. I want to
Yeah,
go further into that. I want to go
absolutely.
further into um, that community aspect of things. And I know we've kind of talked about it a little bit in emails before. So I think this is a really good time actually to dive into that. How can communities, like when you are saying that, can you go further into detail? How can a community be a part of this team?
Yeah. So just a soft and nice little question, right?
Yeah, just a little one.
Yeah. You can take the entire hour just answering that question alone.
Yeah, totally.
Um,
Let's do it.
yeah, it's the individuals that we work with, right?
Mm,
It's the individual business owner that has a business across the street from a shelter. Okay.
okay.
And how that person experiences the fact that there is a shelter in their area where they're doing business.
Mhm.
We want to try to make sure that we're a good neighbor as much as possible. We like to say that we're pro businesses in the community. We don't want to move into a neighborhood and then all of a sudden there's downward pressure or people stop coming or any of those kinds of things. And so, like part of that dynamic is the way that we think about kind of loitering and encampments and the use of drug and alcohol at our facilities. We're not a safe injection site, for example. And so and the reason being is because number one, we want to be that pro-business kind of voice, but also number two, our entire mission is to end homelessness for that person's life.
Mhm.
And so quite often when someone comes to us, they're coming to us for a very specific reason. They know that we have an entire framework and ecosystem that's established that is helping them to get out of homelessness, get off the streets. And that starts for many with a self-established goal of sobriety.
Okay.
And so, creating an atmosphere where it's easier to accomplish sobriety is for many people a critical step in actually accomplishing that goal. And so, like for an example, I can get kind of a bit more of a corporate kind of view on that is within our health and wellness division. One of our goals, or the way that we understand our goals in our health and wellness division, is that it's all about client-led, self-identified goals.
Okay.
And so we kind of use a clinical approach through social workers and system navigators and all the people that we have in that division, where during the course of intake, which is embedded within our shelters and within our housing, immediate goals are established right away. So, like, what are you trying to accomplish? And then we have a roadmap that's established of helping people to accomplish those goals. And so that could be as simple as I want to be sober for the next month, or it could be I need to get ID, or it could be I want to reunite with my family. And so that can look in a variety of ways. And our entire team there is dedicated to helping people accomplish their own self-identified goals. And a huge part of that is the ecosystem that we work within.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And so, if there's massive triggers everywhere that you look for the things that you're actively trying to work against, that's not helping us to create an atmosphere where those goals can be accomplished.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. We actually have another girl who's on for this month, and she experienced homelessness for a period of time, and did have to go. She went through rehab and everything, and she talked about that. Like the more it's in your face, the easier it is to fall back into it. And she's runs her own business, has a family, lives on her own, fully clean now. Like she's
It's
totally
awesome.
changed her life around. It's really beautiful. But yeah, she spoke about that, about how it's so much harder when it's in front of you. Um, so that makes absolute sense.
Yeah.
Like I want to like when it comes to being a good neighbor and the community involvement and the businesses being around, is there a lot of flack, I guess, that you get from businesses, and what is it that they say, and how could it be handled differently, I guess?
Yeah, I want to be really, really just encouraging, I guess, would be the term that businesses that are in the communities that we serve, we want to be friends,
Yeah.
and we are friends with many of them. For example, in Red Deer, with the Red Deer Chamber of Commerce, we just won the Charity of the Year award for
Amazing.
that community. Um,
Wow.
right, an award given out by the business community.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And like that just speaks so clearly about the posture that we try to have in all of our cities. Um, when businesses are rallying around and they're doing what they can in partnership with us to serve the vulnerable community itself, that is like ultimately that's good for everybody
Yeah.
because when there's less social disorder, that means that there's more opportunities for businesses to thrive. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
that's our entire goal is to reduce social disorder through eliminating homelessness, but also through helping individuals accomplish those goals right off the hop. Now, does that mean we don't get pushback? No, of course not.
Yeah.
Um, And there's a myriad of reasons for that. And we have to own when we do mess up, and that we have to own the fact that we do have negative comments that come towards us, and pushback on zoning, for example, is kind of the always the hot button issue. And what we would always ask is give us a chance, because you never know. 10 years later, we might be nominated by the business community to win the best charity of the year award. Like, who knows how it's going to land, right? So, in Calgary, we have a very positive kind of reputation and working relationship with the business community, and obviously in Red Deer as well. And that's our goal everywhere that we serve.
Wow.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It's awesome to have such a good community, because I know that it can be people and businesses alike can be very negative towards that community, just for a lack of understanding about what's
Fear.
going on there. A fear, mostly we're negative about things we're afraid of. And so I know that can be a big challenge. And I've had conversations with people where it's a big challenge, just like challenge their mindset on what they believe, but different, not just the unhoused community, but any different community. So yeah.
I want to go back to when you're talking about you're driving your car and there's an individual with a sign walking at the red light.
Mhm.
And we're talking about being a good neighbor. We're talking about community involvement and being a friend. So, can you give us kind of a little, I'm that person driving my car and I
Sure.
see somebody with a sign. How can I be a good neighbor in that moment?
Yeah. One of the mantras that we're kind of building internally right now, that we're getting ready to launch more publicly, is more than you think.
Ooh,
And
that's good.
yeah, the concept behind that is when you look at a mustard seed location, there's more than you think happening inside there. And likewise, when you look at someone experiencing homelessness, there's more than you think happening there.
100%.
Um, and even for yourself, right? I'm there driving, and the impact that I can have in that interaction is probably more than you think. And the way that that can be more impactful is approaching it from more than a problem, in air quotes, right? That person is not a problem. There's way more going on than you think. That's a full living person with agency that is making a hard decision to put themselves into that particular situation. Now, all the tropes, all the things, some of them legitimate, some of them not, in terms of how that person got there, and why they're doing that, all that kind of thing. What I do know, for the vast majority of interactions that I've had, saying hello is a powerful tool.
Yeah, yeah. I was just thinking, even I think most people, and I've been guilty of this, and I've worked hard to be better. I'm not perfect, but even I think most people, when you see the people walking down like that, if you're not going to give money, you don't have money to give, you just won't look at them.
Yeah,
You know? And it's like, if you don't have money, you can give them a smile at the very least, like,
yeah,
or a hello if you can roll your window down, whatever it may be. I know for me, I'm usually trying to see if I have any change stuck anywhere that I can put somewhere, and
yeah,
I very often don't. But I think that, yeah, like you're saying, like, it doesn't have to be this huge thing. It can be something small, and it can make a difference. I know, again, the girl that I just mentioned, she said that there was I won't tell the story here because she tells in her episode, but there's a small gesture that someone did for her at one point in time, and she said it meant so much. It was huge at the time when she was when she was living homeless. It made a massive impact into somebody to do, like, to think of doing it. It would be nothing, So
Yeah.
yeah.
yeah, absolutely.
Feel like I have a little tug here. So just a little backstory. One day I was in the city in Calgary with my kids, and we'd just been to like a really long doctor's appointment, and I went to get them a treat afterwards. We went to some fancy donut place, and we got some fancy donuts for a treat. And as we were leaving the community, there was somebody, I stopped at a red light, and there was somebody there with a sign, and I rolled down the window and I gave them one of our donuts. And my kids are in the back seat. They're like, "Oh, did you just give away one of our fancy donuts?" And I tried to have this conversation with my kids and like she smiled back at me. She said, "Thank you." She smiled back. I smiled back at her, put the window up, it went green and we carried on. And it led to a conversation with my kids that I wasn't planning. It just
Hmm.
happened. But in that moment, like as we're talking about being a good neighbor and fostering kind of a different perspective, um, I wonder what your perspective is in teaching the next generation coming. Like what would be the perfect thing to say to my children in that moment about what just happened? How can
Yeah.
we teach this next generation to be open-minded and to be those good neighbors?
Yeah. Your question, like the perfect thing.
I
I don't know
guess
if
it's
there
not really,
is.
yeah, no, there's never a perfect thing.
Yeah.
What would you say to a child in that moment?
Yeah. Well, like I have two kids as well. So
Okay.
my daughter's 12, my son's 10. And like it's a constant learning
Hmm.
experience for myself as well, right? Like
Totally.
I lead these teams of people that we're doing all this work, raising money, building kind of social resolve around all of our locations, and doing all this teaching and talking about empathy and hosting school children. Like there's so much work that happens, and boil it down, brass tacks. I'm walking with my daughter down the street, and there's someone experiencing homelessness. Like, what do you say, right? Like she's watching,
Yeah, absolutely.
and she knows what I do for a living.
Hmm.
And it always boils down to that same. I keep on going back to that mantra that we're working on internally of like there's more than you think happening, and
Hmm.
even my daughter in her interpretation of the action that I do, of being either dismissive or
Hmm.
generous. Um, like, does my action of being dismissive create a narrative in my daughter's head of what's A, permissible, and B, um, like appropriate,
Yeah.
versus being generous, right? Then like that, just thinking through the implications of the example, right? So like um, if I'm showing that being dismissive or rude or anything like that towards a human being, um, what other arenas does that start to show up in her life, right?
Oof.
Um, Again, we're not talking about an issue, we're
Hmm.
talking about a person.
Yeah.
Yes.
Um, and it's something that I struggle with internally all the time because I think as parents we try to be perfect. We fail at it miserably all the time. Um, but yeah, I always go back to that idea of like what am I showing? What is it showing in terms of the permission that I'm modeling? And what does the model or what is the frame? How do I want my kids to be thinking about their interactions with people?
I love that.
Me too. I mean, it's good for everything, but specifically in
I love that.
this on this topic,
Hmm.
it is a hard one because no one taught. Me and Melissa both grew up in High River.
Okay.
And so like when I was a teenager, I mean, when I was a young kid, I don't remember coming downtown except for the Stampede, which you don't really see anything at that point in
Mhm.
time. It wasn't until I was a teenager that I kind of started seeing the homeless community. And I remember being very off put by it, not because there's anything wrong, but because I had never experienced it before. No one had ever talked to me about it before. I had no idea.
Yeah.
And it's like you're in your head, you know that they're people,
Yeah.
but you're in a situation that makes you uncomfortable because you don't fully understand what is
Yeah.
is going on, right? And so the more conversations we can have with them, and the more we can do exactly what you did and just normalize it, it's going to make a difference for kids to normalize that, recognize that they're it really the I say normalize it like it shouldn't be normal, but I just mean like if you treat all people equally, regardless of their status in any form of the matter, that's exactly the same thing kids will do. But when you create status levels by not treating people the exact same way, that's the problem. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Yeah, like to add a little bit more maybe nuance or problematize it a little bit, I think that we also have to be honest about the fact that like I don't want my kids to be on their own approaching people that are struggling with addiction, for example,
Of
and putting
course.
them in an unsafe situation as well. So I think that there's also a teaching of like professional distance, um, boundaries,
Yeah.
all those kinds of things as well, because you don't want to end up accidentally in a situation where you kind of lose control or put yourself at risk.
Yeah.
And so I can tell you a fun story about that if you like.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
This maybe goes shows into kind of my philosophy or my window of my brain a little bit here, but I remember being like probably 12, 13 years old, somewhere in that range, playing video games like till the wee hours of the morning, when I shouldn't be. My dad always worked out of town, and so he's a pipeliner working up north somewhere. And my mom, she was asleep in the house, and so I have a friend over, and we're just playing, I don't know, Sega or whatever it was at the time. And I hear a knock at my door. It's like February, let's say 2 in the morning, mid-February, somewhere in that range. And so I hear a knock on the door. And so I'm saying, oh, well, just walk over, open the door. There's two people experiencing homelessness, frozen,
Oh,
and just asking for help.
oh my God.
So I grew up in Bowness, in West Calgary. And some of the modeling that I received from my mom growing up was like, be generous. And so it's like,
Oh my
okay,
God.
well, come on in. And so there's these two people, both adults,
Oh my
at my
gosh.
kitchen, my mom's kitchen table, I guess.
Oh,
And I'm making soup for them at 2 in the morning.
oh,
And my mom hears the banging around of the pots and pans kind of thing. And so she comes out like, what's going on? And then she's like, what is going on?
oh my gosh.
And so now, like, she takes control of the
Oh my
situation at
heavens.
this point and finds out where these people are trying to get to. Um, she takes over. She's like, Phil, go to bed. Like, just you're done.
Yeah.
Like, you're out.
You're fired now. My
And
turn.
so she manages to get them into a car, help them to get to a safe place, all that kind of stuff. And then she comes back, and I'm asleep by that point because I'm like, I don't know, this is random, a normal thing that happened. So the next morning, my mom is like, never do that again. And like,
You can be generous without inviting them into the house.
so like, yeah,
I'm just like picturing myself as a mother walking down the stairs and seeing son making soup for two people at 2:30 in the morning. Oh
Like,
my
on one
goodness.
hand, you're like, I'm so glad I've taught my son to be so incredibly generous. On the
yeah,
other hand, we are home alone and there are now strangers in my house in the middle of the night.
yeah.
Oh my goodness. That is
Oh my
hilarious.
gosh.
How does that make you
Oh,
feel as a parent now, thinking back on like your mom's perspective of that story?
Oh, like it terrifies me. Like it,
oh,
it straight up terrifies me. I'm like this. Like, please God, don't let that happen.
oh my
Yeah.
gosh. How old were you again? I'm sorry. I know you
Like
said it.
12,
Oh
13
my
maybe.
goodness. Oh man. I
Yes,
picked
absolutely. There has to be like this level of like, yes, you can give to people, but like there's a boundary of where
Yeah.
that doesn't cross over. That's a really
isn't
good point. Yeah.
Isn't that so tricky? Like you just brought up such an interesting thing, right? It's such a tricky thing to teach our children because you're teaching generosity and you're teaching, but also to teach those limits. Like there's a there's a balance and a and a fine line in there somewhere between being generous and seeing two people as two people and
Yeah.
allowing them into your house at 2:30 in the morning at 12 years old. Oh,
Well, and that's the thing.
wow.
It wouldn't matter if they were people experiencing homelessness or not.
No, at
Like
that
inviting
stage.
two strangers into your home in the middle of the night as a 12-year-old is not, I mean, with anybody is really not ideal, but at least as
Yeah.
an
Yeah.
adult, you
Totally. Yeah.
can make that safety call.
Yeah.
You can
Oh
Yeah.
do
my
some
So,
scans.
gosh.
yeah.
Your mom must have just froze. You must
Yeah.
have just,
Yeah.
oh
Well,
my gosh,
like
what a
to
story.
give a bit of context, like we operated our house as a bit of a halfway house at different points
Okay,
on
so
the
you were
line.
used to
If
seeing people coming in and out a little
Yeah,
bit?
totally.
Wow. Oh my
Okay,
gosh.
so I'm going to turn us off a little bit. Do you know what the numbers are for those in Alberta specifically that, or even
Mhm.
Calgary, whatever number you want to pick, that are experiencing homelessness?
Yeah. The point in time counts that are released. I don't have them right at my fingertips right now, unfortunately. They are published. So the Calgary Homeless Foundation, for example, would be the best source for that.
Okay.
I do know that the trend is pointed in the wrong direction.
Oh no.
And so, uh, as population increases, as cost of living increases, as housing supply, over the last decade has been decreasing.
Mm,
It's not a great situation.
mm.
Um, I know that like speaking specifically for us, like we get a daily report that shows kind of our occupancy rates in our shelters. And so we have kind of nearly 400 shelter spaces across our network.
Whoa.
And like it consistently is in the 95 to 100% range, pretty much all the time. And speaking to kind of leaders and other shelter providers as well, that's also true. That's true in Calgary. It's true in Medicine Hat, Edmonton, Red Deer. Like there's massive need everywhere right now.
Yeah.
Um, and like we all feel it on a very organic level
Mhm.
when we go to the grocery store, and it's just like, wow, like this cart costs $200. It used to
Yeah.
cost 100.
Yeah.
Yeah, you
So
used to fill a cart and that was $100. And now
yeah,
you're like, I got some bread and some milk and some cheese and we're at
Yeah.
$100. Excellent.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Like
Yeah.
it's ridiculous, right? And
Yeah.
so the need is not going away for sure.
Mm. So this might be like a real like um vague question. I know there's a lot to it. Um, but what needs to happen to change the trajectory here? Like what needs to happen to change the arrow from going the wrong direction and headed into the right direction?
Yeah. Yeah. It goes back to like our earlier part of the conversation of like what is the what is the kind of societal will
Mhm.
that needs to be mobilized in order for us to see real action.
Yeah.
And like there's points in history we can point at and say like there was massive systemic issues that were happening at different points in kind of let's call it like the broader kind of Western society. So like public drunkenness, for example, and the overwhelming response from collections of charities played a role in how that works. So like Salvation Army, for example, stands out as a point in time there, especially in the UK, kind of like 19th, 20th century,
Mhm.
of having a real response of like this is something that needs to change and offering support and respite and all those kinds of things. But ultimately, it came down to civil society acting together and saying that this is something that we will no longer tolerate.
Mm.
And so that means that everybody doing small actions in order to kind of move the entire conversation. We see that in um, if I can nerd out for a little bit,
Of course.
Yeah.
there's a concept in the broader kind of field of marketing called social marketing.
Okay.
And so, t typical marketing, you have price, product, and place, right? So, or sorry, price, product, and promotion. Sorry, those are the three P's of marketing. When you apply those concepts to social marketing, you remove the product, right? But you still have those three P's in place. And what you replace the product with is an idea.
Mm.
And so, what is the price of homelessness to our entire society? What is the idea, right? The product part. What is the idea that we can implement in order to kind of change the way that we perceive that price? Is it a price we're willing to pay or not?
Mm.
And then how do we promote that? And how do we kind of mobilize a response around that? And so, um, if if right now we're saying as a society, I would kind of argue that we're saying that the price that we're willing to pay, either through donating or taxation or whatever the case is, in order to create enough response as a holistic society to actually tackle the problem to the ground, we as a society have kind of collectively said it's a price we're not willing to pay,
Mm.
to be blunt.
Yeah.
Mm.
Um, and until we reach that point, either through collective action, will, socializing the conversation on platforms like this, and kind of getting the word out. We have to kind of have a switch go off in our collective consciousness as a society to say that
Mm.
there is a price that we are willing to pay in order to make sure that this idea that ending homelessness is possible can actually happen. Until we get there, it's, to your earlier comment,
Mm.
we actually won't end it until we
Mm.
decide as a collective action that we're willing to pay the price for it.
Yeah. That's one of those really tricky things. I think about this all the time, especially lately with all the conversations we've been having, is everyone goes like, that's not my problem. That's not my
Mhm.
problem. I need my taxes for me. And obviously I'm not going to get into like tax conversations. That's a
Yeah,
big
yeah,
one. But like people don't want to pay because it's not their problem. And if they can just stay away from whatever it is, that can go into a whole bunch of things, but it's not my problem. I want all mine for me.
yeah,
Instead of like, okay, but this concept of giving a little can actually benefit everybody, even if you don't see it directly. So yeah,
yeah.
that makes sense. I know that's a conversation we had with, again, another gentleman on the podcast. But his name's Peter Samuelson, and he runs a project called the EDAR program it's in kind of in the southern states, because it's like portable housing for
Mm.
homeless community, but it can only be in warm climates. It can't come into winter climates because it's not made for that. But he said that when he first wanted to make a difference in homelessness, he did the math of like what would it be to be able to house all these people and build all these shelters, and he's like, it was like $5 million. He's like, well, I can't, or 5 billion, I can't remember, but he's like, I can't fund that, and the community is not going to vote to tax for that. So what's another alternative?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and
yeah.
and like the product part of that social marketing framework I put in, like that could be the mustard seed model. That could be a variety of different models. And so just because we have a model and a way of doing it doesn't mean that it's the only one that's allowed in the space. Like, of
Hmm.
course not. There has to be a variety of responses in
Yeah.
order to meet people where they're at as well, right? So just because we have more kind of focus on more of this the sobriety piece, there's also room for other operators, charities, civil society organizations to have different approaches to that as well.
Yeah.
And having a holistic strategy that includes different pieces to meet people where they're at. Because again, these aren't problems, these are people.
Hmm.
And people are not cookie cutter. So like, there's no cookie cutter solutions for the hurdles that people are experiencing.
Yeah.
And so there needs to be a holistic response to that. And funding those different responses. Speaking of Calgary specifically, I think one of the great strengths that we have within our system of care is the Calgary Homeless Foundation, and the way that it kind of quarterbacks a bit of a coordinated response strategically. So, the way that funding is distributed to groups like Alpha House, for example, that has a different strategic location within the response compared to the Mustard Seed, compared to the Drop-In Center, compared to the Alex, the Howard Johnson Society. Like there's a whole bunch that are working in the same space through a slightly different lens in order to make sure that people can get the supports that they need at an accessible way for them.
Yeah. And
Um,
sorry.
and like the government of Alberta funds that variety of responses as well. And so like there is a cohesion and there is a strategy that's there. But it is limited in terms of the resources that it has to actually spend. And so that's why people like me have jobs in order to try to convince people to join in on that effort and to donate and to be part of that solution.
Yeah. I mean, and just like you said before, like there's going to be people who aren't ready for the sobriety piece, but are ready to get help. And then eventually they might become ready for the sobriety piece, and then they can move to the location that helps us. And that's again, like our other guest said, she had different places she went at different phases and different things
Yeah,
that helped her along the way. Absolutely.
yeah,
They all need to be there to help.
yeah.
Yeah. I want to ask in our emails back and forth, we had talked about the concept of NIMBYism, which I had to look up because I didn't know what it was. But
Mhm.
um, can you talk about that and how? So that's standing for not in my backyard.
Yeah,
How that plays a role in being able to help the unhoused community.
yeah. So like this goes back to that price dynamic, right? So and it can be very personal. And so I mentioned zoning earlier in the conversation as kind of like a flashpoint that often comes up. And this is where we see this in that, say we have a contract in order to run a shelter. And that shelter needs to have a physical location where it's actually placed in order for it to run. Um, and that means that someone in that neighborhood is going to have to wrestle with the concept of there is a shelter in my backyard, or there is a fully supportive housing operation, or there's a food distribution place, or there's a daytime warming facility. All these pieces of kind of what is designed to help people experiencing homelessness get out of homelessness needs to have a physical location where it actually operates. And so there is, this term, not in my backyard, that's been very, very popularized in the last handful of years, especially. And I want to maybe go a little bit different tack than you may think that I will on this,
No,
but
go ahead.
it's often used as a very negative title to
Mm.
apply to someone to say, not in my backyard. Like I refuse to let this happen because, I'm grumpy or curmudgeon and I want to protect what's mine and, all that kind of stuff. I think that there's actually a place for NIMBYism in that it forces all the players that are involved in this, being governments at municipal level, at the province level, as well as the operator, like the mustard seed, to have a real opportunity to engage with people
Mm.
because engagement is what leads to having a good relationship with your neighbor.
Hmm.
And so if someone is saying, I don't want it here, that is an opportunity to actually talk and figure out what are the challenges. And one thing we often talk about in our community engagement team is that when someone's mad at you, that's good because they actually want to talk to you. It's when someone stops talking to you that you need to get nervous
Mm.
because there's no opportunity to actually have a conversation and you can't learn from them. And so NIMBYism, is generally a bit of a kind of like a four-letter word type of thing. But I think it's actually it has a positive outcome if you approach it from kind of the right posture.
Mhm.
Because like I just want to draw a point on this. Um, we have talked about people experiencing homelessness as people versus a problem. Okay.
Yeah.
So someone that's operating in kind of they've been labeled as a NIMBY person, that's also a person, right? That's not a problem.
Whoa.
And so the same level of empathy and respect that we talked about for treating that person that's walking between the cars and saying hello
Yeah.
should be the exact same for someone that's upset about the fact that their day-to-day life is going to be affected by the fact that a shelter is in their neighborhood.
Whoa.
That's an important conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like you said, in conversation, it needs to be a conversation. And if it's not a conversation, it creates tension and nobody's going to fix it.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I also think when you said, you were like, I'm going to take this in a different way, you think, where I thought you were going to go when you said that was changing the script of like people saying like, not in my backyard, in the sense of like, I don't want the homelessness in my backyard, to like, I don't want homelessness to
Solve it.
exist in my backyard.
Like
And it's like,
we want to solve it.
yeah,
Yep.
Hmm.
Yeah,
yeah,
and like that's where we often try to lead the conversation when we have
Hmm.
those conversations. But I think that it needs to start in the here and now, as opposed to kind of the goal, right? So
Yeah.
um, if like you think about it from like a sales perspective, um, if someone is uh, the feeling when someone approaches you in order to land a sale,
Oh
mm,
yeah.
right?
yes,
Versus the feeling of when someone approaches because they genuinely want to hear you out.
Mm.
Like,
yeah,
that's a different conversation. Um, and yeah, like, it's such an important dynamic to wrestle through because again, we're like it's complicated. Perfection
Yeah.
is not attainable.
hmm,
But the people that we're trying to serve includes the neighbors that make our operations possible.
Wow. What would you say to somebody who is, say, not a business, a resident? Say
Mhm.
there's somebody, they're living in a house and there's a proposed shelter that's going to go in nearby. They have young kids and they're uncomfortable.
Yeah.
What does that conversation look like? I mean, I
Yeah.
know that it would look a number of different ways depending
Yes.
on how it's approached, but what would you say to somebody who's just like, wow, I support this, but I'm feeling very uncomfortable about it at the same time?
Yeah. So, why are you uncomfortable? Is there any specific things that you can point to?
Mhm.
If there are specific things that you can point to, is there specific actions that you would like to see us as an operator doing to address those concerns?
Mhm.
Um, Sometimes we can, sometimes we can't. But it starts in conversation. And sometimes we have to be also kind of swallow our pride at times too and say like, "Oh, sorry about X thing that happened." Um, and approaching that relationally as opposed to like just checking a box of like,
Mhm.
oh, we have to do this because something happened. Um, Again, pe people know the difference between those two things. Um, and like generally speaking, I think that people are willing to hear you out if they know that your intentions are pure.
100%.
Um, and uh, they also are less willing to hear you out if they get the sense that your intentions aren't pure. And so, like it's it's hard to give a concrete answer to your question.
No, you
Um,
did perfectly.
okay, because
Mhm.
it's so nuanced.
Oh yeah, and I imagine it would be it's a different story depending on which person is involved and
Mhm.
how they're approaching it and what the concerns are and stuff. I would imagine that to be a real challenge. What is the biggest um I'm asking a lot of real big ones
Yeah, it's good.
today.
You're keeping
What's
me on
the
my
big
toes here.
right? What is the biggest challenge facing the mustard seed today if you were to kind of
The biggest challenge.
Mhm.
Well, I would say that uh, going back to this cost of living crunch that we're all living through.
Mhm.
Um, so there's kind of two things. We're seeing a rising need,
Mhm.
and we're seeing a downward pressure on donations.
Oh, of
And so
course.
that's a bit of a perfect storm from like a cash flow management perspective of we're entrusted with a certain amount of finances, and there's a bit of a scarcity of how much we can accomplish based on how much we have. And the hard decisions that we have to make as an executive team at the Mustard Seed is how much do we respond to the need? Because there's only so much we can do. We want to do way more, like just by like order of scale more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that is entirely predicated on the amount of money that we can actually mobilize
Mhm.
and use in service of that work. And so
Wow.
it's a bit of a it's both and in terms of the massive need versus the resources that we have to address that need.
Wow.
Yeah, I
That's tough.
mean, it is tough. I mean, that is tough. I mean, I can say it for myself that I know, like, I've been in seasons where I'm able to donate more to different causes, and it's a season right now where I had very limited ability to donate to
Yeah,
certain things, right?
Yeah.
So,
yeah,
yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely. And people have to pick and choose their causes at the same time, where if you used to have 10 you could donate to, and now you're like, I got two, I can do two,
yeah,
right? And
yeah.
everyone's going to pick different too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And again, like, donors aren't a problem. Donors are people.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so like it's a deeply relationship business actually that we're in, right?
Yeah.
It's relationships with our donors, relationships with other forms of funding, relationships with our clients that we're trying to serve, relationships with the
Mhm.
neighbors that enable our work to happen. It's a very deeply relational
Wow.
work.
Wow.
I want to, this is kind of like I feel like a very basic question, but I feel like a really important one for everyone to hear. Because I know when I met with Kat originally, she kind of indicated there's all different layers of what the mustard seed does, that maybe things that are, I can't even speak, things
Things that
people are
people
not aware
don't.
of.
Yeah,
Can you tell us all the different facets of work that the mustard seed does?
sure. So like maybe I'll give you the kind of the rundown through the lens of um, someone looking for a cup of coffee. Okay. So we all know that experience. We can empathize with it of I need my morning Joe. And so the mustard seed in some ways starts at what we would call a community impact center. And so that's someone that's walking in from the street. It's a street level staffing model that we have of buildings that are dedicated to people can kind of come and go as they need for maybe come in from the elements, grab a cup of coffee, meet with somebody, facilitate some community sometimes. So like there could be board games going on. There could be a chaplain there willing to talk to people, different group activities. There's kind of art therapy that happens at these places. There's sports watched, movies watched, all that kind of stuff. There's also those advocates that I mentioned within our health and wellness division are also embedded in those places as well, helping people to accomplish their goals. So that's kind of one place that happens. There is food depots in different locations, so that people can kind of like a food bank, if you will, where people can come and get a hamper for themselves or for their family. There's also prepared meals. So some of those prepared meals are handed out via these community impact centers, but the vast majority of those meals happen at our shelters. And so the Mustard Seed as an organization, this coming year will probably serve somewhere in the range of about 1.2 million meals, like prepared meals.
Whoa.
And so there's a ton going on there all the time, and that's the biggest kind of line for our volunteers as well that come in and help prepare meals. Um, we have a sorting center for all the donations that people give of like shoes and sweaters and toiletry items and all those things that you maybe see on social media. And so that's another big volunteer opportunity that we have for people. We have drivers that move stuff between locations and make sure that every site has what it needs. But then there's also within our housing, there is addiction recovery happening in some of our locations. There's housing itself that's happening, and the mustard seed specifically, what we call fully supportive housing, means that we have staff embedded in all of our housing operations that are there to provide 24/7 support for
Wow.
whatever is needed. And so a lot of the people that we house, it's difficult for them to maintain housing for a variety of reasons. And so our staff are kind of built there specifically to help them to make sure that they don't kind of get back onto the streets.
Yeah.
So those are a few things within our shelters itself. These are often community places for a lot of people, and one of the things that we're quite proud of is we have a very specific goal of helping people through identifying those goals and moving them along their journey of how many people are we putting into housing, either our own or through a variety of other vehicles, sometimes market housing, non-market housing through other providers. Our goal is 15% per month of people in our shelters moving into housing.
Mm.
And
Wow.
so right now we're cooking along at about 18% for the
Oh,
year.
awesome.
Awesome.
Wow.
And yeah, it's a weird phrase, I know. But what that means is that we'll probably end up housing just over 1,300 people this year. And
Wow.
so you extrapolate that down on a day by day basis, that's roughly three people per day
That's
that
awesome.
are moving out of homelessness into housing.
Wow.
Um, then I mentioned that like, there's a whole health and wellness division, which sometimes could be things from like foot care, because one of the things that you may not, and it was surprising to me when I learned about this, is that if you're walking outside for the majority of the day on cold concrete, especially in the winter, that has implications for your feet.
I can't remember what that. There's yeah, I remember looking this up. That there's this
Cork.
disease that can happen to your feet from being in the wet, cold shoes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
So
that's
like kind of
awful.
like a trench foot type
Tench
of,
foot. Yeah, that one. Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, that's awful.
And so we'll have volunteers, nurse practitioners, doctors that come in and give therapy and everything related to that. We do tax filing for free for people because so many of the benefits that you need in order to get into housing
Whoa.
requires you to have good standing with the CRA for your tax file. And so we offer that as a service.
Okay.
Personal identification. One of the things that we do is called diversion. And so that's when someone is moving from shelter into housing. Diversion funding specifically is for first and last month rent. And so that's, again, through that kind of coordinated response with the Calgary Homeless Foundation, that's a thing there and different agencies and different centers that we work in. Um, there's spiritual care happening in all these different places. So like that could be like having a spiritual conversation, because we know that part of wholeness and wellness is not just physical needs, but it's also emotional as well as spiritual. And so there's that happening. There is I've already mentioned addiction recovery. There's job training that's happening. So like we have a group that works specifically on employment and getting people employed through a network of businesses that we partner with in order to kind of get labor, for example, is a big one. We're currently working on a partnership with a restaurant group in Calgary in order to get people employed into the restaurant industry. And so like there's so much going on.
That's
And
awesome.
every single one of these has a reason for it. It's tied back to those goals. It's tied to the outcome of ending homelessness in that person's life. And yeah, so that's a
Wow.
quick rundown. I'm sure I'm forgetting a whole bunch of stuff, and I'll probably have some staff call me after hearing this and say, "You forgot about my part."
It's a
Nobody's perfect,
lot.
okay? It's fine.
It's a lot.
It's incredible, like all the different layers and the pieces you don't think about, right? Like, in my head, you just think, okay, there's food and there's shelter,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And think
but
about
there's
all the other
so
things.
much more that actually defines each one of
Hmm.
those.
Hmm.
I have two questions for you on everything you just said. One is the first one you talked about, like the community outreach with like the coffee and the games and things like that. How do people find those? How does the homeless community find out that those where they are and that they can get to them?
Through the community itself.
Oh, just
Like
word of
this is,
mouth.
yeah, this is one thing that always surprises me. Like when you talk to people, so like sometimes you talk to people and be like, I don't go to the mustard seed. There's too many rules. Um, Whereas sometimes you talk to people and say like, I only go to the mustard seed because I know the rules.
Mm,
Um,
Oh, wow.
and so that speaks to that like meeting people where they're at and it's like the kind of
Yeah.
strategy of it all. Um, but yeah, like I was talking to one person recently. We recently decommissioned an old church that was kind of one of our original buildings in Edmonton. And the way that he phrased it was that the mustard seed was my living room, and a different provider was my kitchen, and a different place was my bedroom.
Wow.
And so he was talking about how within the community, it's extremely well known of where you go based on what you need.
Wow. That's super interesting.
yeah, that is really interesting. Really interesting. And then I have a question about when you have people that go through these programs and end up, housed and things like that. Do you know statistically if there's people who end up coming back, or how many people are able to stay out? Like, do you have statistics on that kind of information?
Yeah, we track some of that. Some of it's really hard
Mm-hmm.
to track. Like sometimes we'll see people come into our shelters, and then maybe they stay for a week, and then we never hear from them again. And sometimes we'll hear from them years later and say like, "Oh, that was an important part of my life, and like, it helped me to move on, and whatever." Sometimes we never hear from them again.
Yeah.
Um, I know that one example that's a bit more of a smaller sample size, which is helpful, is our women's shelter in downtown Calgary. It's actually my office here where I'm sitting. It's the two floors above my head. So we
Cool.
have 80 shelter beds there. And
Wow.
we have like a an extremely successful operation that's happening there right now in terms of the rate of people moving out and the community ties that are there. And we see like a very, very small, like 1 to 2% kind of going back in after being housed.
Mm.
And that has I'm not exaggerating, that has a huge part to do with the community within the shelter because the women that are there are cheering each other on.
Oh.
Women
Um,
are so good at that.
yeah,
Nothing against men.
yeah. It's a real like
Wow.
like I don't go in there for a variety of reasons. Um, but the reports that I read out of there are just really cool. Really, really cool.
That's awesome.
That's very awesome. Thank you for sharing that.
I
Thank you for
love it.
sharing that. Melissa, do you have any other questions that you had sitting on your head?
Oh, I could probably think about a million, but
Oh, I
I
know I
no,
could
I'm
too,
gonna
but
save it. I'm gonna save it. I'm just I'm feeling really grateful. I love having these conversations and kind of every time we have one of these conversations is kind of opens things up a little bit more. And I keep looking back. I wrote it down and I'm gonna do some kind of content with it, but the you're talking about a person and not a problem thing is just I just love that so much. I love that so much.
yeah,
So sorry,
same.
Sammy, not a question, just a statement. I just
No,
love
that's
it.
fine.
I'm just
Well,
really grateful for
yeah,
this.
that posture I think is very, very embedded into the DNA of the mustard seed because of our foundation story. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that.
No.
Um,
Do you
I
have
know
time
that
to
I
give
get it
us a
every year at Christmas and I read it, but I can't
yeah,
recite it.
can you give us a
sure.
we want to respect your time, but do you have time to give us a brief
Yeah,
synopsis?
yeah. So 1984 is when the mustard seed was founded, so 41 years ago, in downtown Calgary, and it was originally called the Burning Bush, and
Oh,
it was a coffee house in the basement of First Baptist Church that was run specifically for people experiencing homelessness, and it became this thing of guys on the street serving coffee to other guys on the street. Essentially, is how kind of it started. And one of those guys that came in to grab a cup of coffee, his name's Pat, and he ended up becoming the founder of what would later be known as the mustard seed. And so, like, talk about that very clear example of talking to somebody because they're a person, not a problem, ended up being the founder of the mustard seed and grew it from the basement of a church to a 7 city wide operation now. He was our first CEO for 20 some years. And that's now serving tens of thousands of people. It's the
wow.
largest charity in Canada in the space now. And that all happened because a few people were willing to have a conversation with someone that others viewed as a problem.
Whoa,
And
goosebumps.
like it's a deeply powerful and personal kind of story for all of us here at the Mustard Seed because we've seen we're all part of the outflow of what that posture can do.
Yeah.
Goosebumps. I love that. So, just for clarity's sake, are you telling us that the man who founded the mustard seed was unhoused himself
Yes.
and came in for a conversation and a cup of coffee, and then this whole thing is born?
Yeah.
That's what you're saying?
Yeah.
Phew. I love that so much. I love that story. That
It's
is
really
so
good.
cool. What a great, like, I love how that takes something that I imagine working at the seed would be, there's a lot of challenge to it. And
Mhm.
I would imagine that there's a lot of um, ups and downs that go with it. But having that as your foundation just must be um, uplifting.
Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty cool.
That's very cool. I love
Yeah,
it.
absolutely.
Wow.
Is
Phil,
there,
oh, go
I was gonna say,
ahead.
is there
Go ahead.
anything on your heart, Phil, that we didn't ask you that you really wanted to speak about today?
Yeah. I think that just to reiterate, when you see people you're walking around, yeah, obviously boundaries are important as we learned.
Not 2
But
a.m. in your living room when you're
yeah, yeah,
12.
exactly. But people are people, and regardless of the situation they find themselves in, and a little empathy goes a very, very long way. And we're living proof of that very thing, that conversation with somebody can give birth to this entire organization. Who knows who you're talking to, right? Like you have no idea. And so take the time, say hello, or smile. It can be something as small as that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Thank you
Love
so
it.
much for your time today, Phil. We're so grateful for you joining us, sight unseen, to record this episode.
Thanks for having me on. It's been fun. Nice to meet you both.
Yes, you
Nice to
too.
meet you
Have a good one.
too. Holy.
Holy, I'm so grateful that he
Love it.
came on today to chat about this.
Mhm.
I've known about the mustard seed forever. Like I've donated. I get like a letter in the mail every Christmas being like, "Hey, like more money can help more people." Obviously, it's
Yeah.
worded much nicer than that. But but and some years I can and some years I can't, but
Mhm.
I've never dove into everything that the mustard seed does, and so
It's a
I'm really
lot.
grateful to learn more about what they do and all of their outreach programs and everything they do in house.
Yeah.
Um
I love
yeah.
how thought out it is in like all the different facets, like to take it and go like, here's all the need that's happening here. It's not just, you know, it's not just a meal, it's not just a roof. It's like all of the things. I really love that, and I appreciate their founding story so very much. I did not know that. Did you know that that was their founding story?
When I knew
I
it
didn't.
because I've read it because it's written on the back of their
On a
Christmas thing
letter?
all the time.
Good for
I
you.
know that I read it a few times, but not I don't read it every year. So I'm like, as he's telling, I'm like, I know I've heard this, but I
I
couldn't.
have not heard that. And I've known of the mustard seed for a really long time. I'm pretty sure we used to um like I know that it's been connected to like as I was growing up, there was a lot of things that we did in church, like with youth groups and stuff that we would donate to it. And it was talked about a lot, but I never knew that that was their founding story, and I just think it's so cool.
It was
Like,
really cool. It
and
is
I,
really
I
cool.
just, I love all of the things he was saying. Like the person and not a problem thing is just like, I mean, you could listen to this episode and take a lot of the things that he said and apply it to any other part of your life.
Hmm.
And I love episodes like that. And I love how human it is,
Yeah.
you know?
I really had written down the question of wanting to ask him like what caused you to like want to work at the mustard seed, and then when
Yeah,
he
me
told the
too.
story about growing up and like what his parents taught him, I'm like, oh well, obviously this is where it went. That makes sense. Yeah.
Right? It totally makes,
Yeah.
oh my gosh. I love that story he told too. I love that so much. Oh my gosh. It reminded me once I don't know, you might have to cut this out, but I picked up a hitchhiker once and I was still living at home. My dad is a medic, and we grew up very like we talked about the seed, we talked about a lot of that stuff. We talked about generosity. We talked about it sounds like a very similar kind of narrative that he grew up with, that I grew up with talking about people without being in the industry, but um we did lots of talk about it. And then when I think I must have been 16 because I was still living at home and I just got my driver's license. And I picked up a hitchhiker and my dad was furious. Like he was some kind of mad. Like he was older than any, it doesn't matter. He was mad. He was not happy that I had picked up this hitchhiker. And it was like, yes, be generous, but not like that.
Yeah.
Not bringing a strange man into your vehicle generous, maybe crossing the line.
Yeah.
He was so mad anyway.
Well, and
Anyways,
it's tricky too because I feel like I was never taught about it, but I feel like it was more like I feel like the safety taught to me overcame the
Mhm.
generosity, if that makes sense. Like it was
Right?
like stay away from them, stay away from them. Like I feel like that was more what I was taught. Not
Right.
that I ever had the homeless community around me or anything like that, but
Right.
just anybody that seemed different, unsafe was stay away, stay away, stay
Right.
away. So it took me longer to get to the I don't need to stay away. I can create my own safety, and then finding that boundary
But
for
you know what's
sure.
interesting about that is I have also experienced the fears then. So like therein lies the balance somewhere between our two upbringings and somewhere between, you know, inviting them into your house at 2 a.m. to make them soup and being fearful of them. And somewhere in there lies the lesson that I would like to teach my children, not to say anything wrong about my parents didn't do anything wrong
Yeah,
there. I'm
yeah.
just saying like somewhere in there is like the be generous and be safe, you know. But I love what he said about the action, about how it is how our kids are watching what we are doing more than what we're saying maybe.
Yeah.
And so maybe, you know, the donut, to go back to the donut story, it wasn't about what I said afterwards. It was about what I did
Yeah.
in that moment. It wasn't necessarily about the talking lesson. It was about, oh, okay, safe, daytime, in a car, door locked, you know, like, anyway.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I love it. I'm
Absolutely.
so grateful for them to be a part of this, and to Phil for chatting with us. And yeah,
I agree.
great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Thank
love
you
it.
so much. Thank you so much for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. To help support the growth of this podcast, please feel free to leave us a review, follow us on socials, or recommend us to your friends. Your support honestly means the world to us. With love, Sammi and Melissa.